between the lines. Got to read. Got to read between the lines.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of What's Going On. I'm your host, Tom D'Ambra. As always, we are very thankful you take the time from your busy day to view our program. Well, my friends, once again, the radicalism of the left, if you would, is part of the divide paradigm is just continuing. We have had the Supreme Court building was assaulted with quite a few people being arrested, and the beatings continue at street level by the conservatives of this nation, being victim to the left. Now, my friends, I do not get involved in the divide paradigm of left and right. I basically want the American people to understand that that is nothing more than a divide paradigm, but it is a reality that this divide paradigm has been extremely effective here in our country. So we have to ask, where is this playbook coming from? Now, it starts at a very young age in the indoctrination system that you know as the public, I call it the public fool system, the public school system. So what I want to do, and I know I showed you this picture before, but this is a modern day classroom. And when you look at this, and I know we broke this down before, first of all, take a look at the teacher. I mean, can she please lead by an example here with her apparel? Number two, let's look at the children. In the left-hand side, we have two young men that are, I don't know, how would you say it? Having a homosexual adventure here. We have the black and Latino children with the pump fist. Now, they're supposed to be saluting the flag, folks, and respecting the flag. And then, of course, we have the child who was holding the flag with the other young man. Neither one of them have any interest in the flag. This teacher has no control over this classroom. And look what is being allowed to be portrayed here. Folks, you are seeing with this picture a demographic of radicalism at a very, very young age in a classroom that we pay an extremely high premium to have this indoctrination system go on. I was doing some studying through the NEA papers, and all the way back into the 1930s, but I found something very interesting because I was thinking of my mother and father's generation, and I was thinking of my in-laws' generation. So I decided that I would start there. So I want you to listen to this. This is a choreograph, if you would, of the concerns of social behavior of the children in the classroom. And I picked 2 years, one 1940, again, because I was thinking of my mother and father and my in-laws. Of course, my mother and father were both educated in the American school system. But in 1940, the feds had not taken over the school systems yet. The feds took over the school systems in 1964, and they made it a secular school system. That's radical. But I want you to, so I compared 1940 to modern day, and I went with the year 2015 because that is when this study went up to. Now, listen to the concerns of social behavior by a conglomerate of these teachers in 1940. The number one concern was noise. The number two concern was littering. And the number three concern in the American classroom in 1940 was students chewing gum. So we have noise, littering, and chewing gum. Now in 2015, the same survey which they took every year. Listen to these results. Listen to the concerns of teachers of social behavior of their children. 2015, rape, assault, and suicide. The school system has done exactly what it was meant to do. Number one, separate the bond of mother and father, disintegrate the family, as we got into with our technical research operator's manual. And number two, look what's going on with morality in our society with young people. You went from 1940, from noise, littering, and chewing gum concerns, to 2015, concerns of rape, assault, and suicide. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? This is exactly, my friends, what the indoctrination system was set up to do. Now, there is a reason why they have taken spiritual faith, God, and knowledge out of the classroom. Because spiritual faith is part of the cycle, if you would, of going from bondage to liberty. Now, there was a book that I read many years ago written by Alexander Fraser Tytler, and if you want to look him up, it's Tytler, and it's called The Decline and Fall of the Athenian Republic. And as you study this book, listen to the cycle of man here. From bondage to spiritual faith. And then man goes from spiritual faith to great courage. And what does the spiritual faith gives you the courage? And if you have spiritual faith, my friends, with knowledge, and then you have courage to act, then you go from great courage to what? To liberty. And then from liberty, what do we have? We have abundance. We have freedom. But then from abundance, according to Mr. Tytler, you go into selfishness. What is selfishness, my friends? It's acting only on one's behalf at the cost of everybody else. Greed. And then from selfishness to complacency. You see, you no longer, your goals are motivated by greed and selfishness, and then you become complacent. You no longer have the spiritual faith and the courage to act in liberty. And then from complacency, we go to dependency. And then from dependency, my friends, it's very simple to figure out where we go. Into bondage, which is where we are today. And you can say, oh, come on, Tom, how do we go into bondage? Well, it's very simple. You're bonded. You are bonded. You have a birth certificate, you are bonded. Understand that. So, this is the reason why the classroom has become a secular indoctrination system. And this is why God and knowledge is taken out of the classroom, because if you have knowledge and you have understanding that your rights come from your Creator and not benefits from an insolvent corporation you call the government, well, then you understand those rights are from your Creator, and you would not let the government encroach upon them rights and turn them into benefits. You see, my friends, it says in our founding documents that our rights are unalienable, not unalienable if they come from Mars, unalienable. They cannot be taken away, they cannot be altered, except if we allow it to go on. Hence, if you have knowledge of God and you have spiritual faith, then you get the courage to either what? Go back and try to regain what has been lost, or you draw a line in the sand and have the courage to act and not allow the encroachments on your rights. So this indoctrination system that we pay an incredible high premium for has been very, very effective. And let's not forget, my friends, these kids cannot even count change back to us. They can't count change. If the machine is not doing the reasoning and the processing of thought, they cannot do it. This was meant on purpose. Okay. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but I want to read this one quote to you from Noah Webster. Education is useless without the Bible. The Bible was America's basic textbook in all fields. God's word contained in the Bible has furnished all necessary rules to direct our conduct. So they've taken the foundation of societal behavior and thrown it out the window and replaced it with everything that is against what makes a civil society. Crime has gone up. Every aspect of crime has gone up in our country. Every aspect. The 1964 compared to the high school reading abilities of now, 4th grade reading level. This has been very effective. They teach Common Core math, which doesn't work. 2 plus 2, my friends, does equal 4, not 5, or whatever we happen to perceive it to be that day. So the question becomes, how is it that, what is the game plan these radicals use? And when you look at radicals, we have people like Ingalls and Marx, but we also have a lesser-known individual named Saul, S-A-U-L, Alinsky. And I would like to read a couple of quotes from Mr. Alinsky, if we could. The despair is there. Now it's up to us to go in and rub raw the saws of discontent, galvanize them for radical social change. Ordo ad chaos, order from chaos. Create chaos. Okay. Do you remember I told you before that all these people, like people will say, oh, it's the Jews, oh, it's the Catholics, oh. Well, yeah, it is. But you know what the people who are these radicals really are? And we've read a lot of these quotes to you. They are Satanists. Now, listen to Mr. Alinsky here. The very first radical known to man who rebelled against the establishment and did it so effectively that he at least won his own kingdom, Lucifer. Folks, this person is a Satanist. Now, we have quotes from Bill Clinton. We have quotes from this man from Barack Obama. We have quotes from this man from Chuck Schumer. We have quotes from this man from all the radicals, because they are all Satanists, my friends. Walter Cronkite used to quote this man. Walter Cronkite. You remember Uncle Walter? If you're my age, every night you watch Uncle Walter. Uncle Walter wouldn't lie to you. A pure Satanist. So, Alinsky wrote a book called Rules for Radicals in 1971. And then he died in 1972 from a heart attack. Okay? He had a heart attack. It was a widowmaker. Away he goes. So now he is, and when you read this man's stuff, he contemplates whether he'd rather go to heaven or hell. And he comes right out and says that he would serve in hell because his God is Lucifer. Then we have Hillary Clinton, who wrote her college theses attached to Rules for Radicals. And she has followed that footprint. Now, before we get into this, I want to back up something. this is an 8-point plan that was written by Richard Andrew Collard and both professors, excuse me, let me back up. Written by two college professors at Columbia University, sociologists they were, Richard Andrew Collard, C-L-O-W-A-R-D, and Francis Fox Piven, P-I-V-E-N. And folks, you may know this as the Cloward-Piven strategy. And what it basically is, my friends, is to overload government bureaucracy upon the people. In other words, there's nothing that we cannot do without getting permission from the government to do it. They've been very effective at that. I want you to name one thing that you can do that you don't need permission from the government to do it. You can't build a house, you can't put in a septic system, you can't put in a water system. Hell, in some states you can't even collect rainwater off your roof. Okay? So, let's get into this subject matter. And then we're going to break down the 12 rules of Mr. Alinsky's rules for radicals. Okay, so this is how to create a social state. So what is a social state? What is socialism? I mean, you know, we got Bernie Sanders here. We got all these socialists that want to destroy our laissez-faire economy, which has already been destroyed. Now we are in capitalism, controlled capitalism. But there's an author by the name of Gary Allen, and he sums what socialism is very well. This is his quote. If one understands that socialism is not a share the wealth program, but it is in reality a method to consolidate and control the wealth, then the seemingly paradox of super rich men promoting socialism becomes no paradox at all. Instead, it becomes logical, even the perfect tool of power-seeking megalomaniacs. Communism, or more accurately, socialism, is not a movement of the downtrodden masses, but rather of the economic elite. That is exactly what socialism is. So, how is it, according to the Cloward-Piven strategy, that we make the government such a burden on the people? Well, they have an 8-point plan. The first one was health care. Control health care and you control the people. Oh, did you get your toxic flu shot today? Employees of MVRH and other people in the medical field? Did you sign your waiver that once you get sick from the flu shot and have all the potential idiosyncratic reactions, did you sign your waiver so the corporation, tax-free corporation, that mandates you take these shots, and it isn't just MVRH here in St. Johnsbury, my friends, it's throughout the Western medical culture. By the way, they blew it again. The CDC has come out and said they expect only a 10% accuracy rate with the flu shots this year. Remember last year they actually issued an apology before the flu shots even hit the road? Healthcare. Control healthcare or you control the people. Number 2, poverty. Increase the poverty level as high as possible. Poor people are easier to control and will not fight back if you are the providing everything for them to live. You see why they want you on the government dole? Do you understand that? People who are in abject poverty do not have the resources to fight back. All their wealth has been consumed by the international bankers. We have irredeemable paper for our medium of exchange. We have no wealth, folks. Senate Document 43, I keep saying this, Senate Document 43, Senate Document 43. All property is in the state and subordinate to the necessities of the state. March 9th, 1933. And while we're speaking of this, what is also in that act? The Trading with the Enemies Act. The definition of enemy is in the Trading with the Enemies Act of 1933. What is that definition of enemy according to the United States government? citizens of the United States, and those under the jurisdiction of the United States. That's the definition of enemy. You and I have been declared the enemy by the government of the United States that we believe to be a benevolent organization. Quite simple. Number 3, debt. Increase the debt to an unsustainable level. That way you are able to increase the burden of taxes, and this will produce more what? Poverty. So is this organization looking out for our well-being? Is this organization want us to flourish in a laissez-faire economy, in a common law system? No. It wants us in a commercial law system bonded as debtors, which is what we are. Law mercantile, my friends, commercial law, you are either a creditor or a debtor. And if you are bonded, which we are, then you are a debtor. It's very simple. Let us continue. Number 4, gun control. Remove the ability to defend themselves from the government. That way you are able to create a police state. And by the way, aren't you so glad that Columbia University, this is what they're actually studying? How to make us abject slaves? This is what academia is. I keep telling you, academia is part of this program, my friends. We're seeing it now. The young people that are coming out at the high school level, they can't read, they can't count change, they can't reason, they don't have a thought process to go through a reasoning process. They know how to push buttons. That's it. And look at the cost of this. I just paid my extortion fee this week. And what's an extortion? Extortion is someone making you do something, and if you don't, there will be a penalty to be paid. That's extortion. Well, I don't own my land. Senate Document 43 states that plainly from the congressional record. And if I don't pay my property taxes because I don't own my land, the people who really own the land or have rights to the land are going to come and let me know I don't own the land. That's extortion. Gun control, I'll say it again, remove the ability to defend themselves from the government. That way you are able to create a police state. Can you say militarized police? And you think the police are here to help us. Now, I know a lot of, when I was involved in EMS, over decades, I got to see a full spectrum of law enforcement. I also come from a family that had career police officers from the late 1950s, literally all the way to the 1990s, and now I still have someone that is in law enforcement today, who's much younger than me. And they don't, the police, most of them join on to, as a community service. Yeah, they make incredible good money. It used to be the cops didn't make good money, but boy, you've got to take care of the cops now. Why? Because they are the militarized police. Do you remember how Huxley said, all the old themes will remain in place, but the foot soldiers, the military, and the police will enforce the radical change. And that's what police do. Police don't know when they write you a ticket. They know they're revenue officers, but they don't know that they are enforcing a commercial venue of law that is controlled by a foreign guild called the British Accreditation Registry. You know it as the Bar Association. And this is why all these attorneys A-T-T-O-R-N, to atone, to separate one from one's property. I have a British title of nobility called esquires. And if you look at the original 13th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, you will see that you could not hold public office and carry a title of nobility. And what is it now? 91, or I forget what the number is, but an incredible percentage of people at the Congress, at the federal level, that are what? Attorneys, carrying a British title of nobility. You go up to any attorney, they'll tell you that the client is second. They are an officer of the court first. That is what they swore to. The attorney swore to keep this racket going against the American people. And that's why the attorney gets paid whether they lose or whether they win the case, because it doesn't matter. They are enforcing the system. And now, of course, they want guns. We've been declared the enemy of said government. I hate using the word government. But we've been declared the enemy. Of course they want to disarm us. We're the enemy. Doesn't that make sense to you? Number 5, welfare. Take control of every aspect of their lives through welfare program, food, housing, and income. Done deal. Education. Take control of what people read and listen to us. Take control of what children learn in school. And we have a very good example of that, don't we? What is going on in our school system? Concerns 1940 of social behavior from teachers about students. 1940, noise, littering, and chewing gum. 2015, rape, assault, and suicide. They've done it. Religion. Remove the belief and knowledge in God from the government and schools. Religion. Remove the belief and knowledge in God from the government and schools. Done deal. What is the first thing they did in 1964, my friends? Boom. Secular school system. Number 8, class warfare. Divide the people into the wealthy and the poor. This will cause more discontent and it will be easier to take, parentheses, tax the wealthy with the support of the poor. Now, the wealthy do not pay taxes in this country. They just don't. The tax system, as Hillary Clinton said, that Donald Trump, when they were debating, took advantage of all of the tax breaks that were available to the rich people. Well, of course Donald Trump did. He'd be stupid not to. But who set up that system to have all these tax breaks for the elite? People like Hillary Clinton and the like. So, according to the Cloward-Piven strategy, you put an indulgence of burden of government on the people through the health care, control of health care, by promoting poverty, by impoverishing the people in debt, by gun control, taking away their ability to defend themselves, by the welfare system, taking control and providing every aspect of their lives, food, housing, income, through the education/indoctrination system, through religion, by making religion secular. Think of them words. Making religion secular, taking God out of social behavior and morality. And of course, the great divide paradigm, class welfare. Now, they mention economic class welfare, but what about all the ones that are in play today? The left, the right, gender. Well, now we got 42 genders in California, so we don't know where that's going to go, do we? Okay. So now, my friends, let's get into Mr. Saul Alinsky here. And again, this man is a complete radical. the very first radical known to man who rebelled against the establishment and did so effectively that he at least won his own kingdom, Lucifer. So, what I don't obviously have the time to read this entire book to you, so I broke down his 12 rules for radicals. Okay. And as I read this breakdown to you, my friends, think of what is going on today in our society. Rule number 1. Power is not only what you have, but what the enemy thinks you have. That's very important. It's not only the power that you possess, but perception can also affect what the enemy thinks you have. Power is derived from two main sources, money and people. Have-nots must build power from flesh and blood. These are two things of which there is a plentiful supply. Government and corporations always have a difficult time appealing to people and usually do so almost exclusively with economic arguments. So in other words, yeah, we're going to tax you, yeah, we don't, all of this, but government and corporations have an appeal to people through what? Advertisements, indoctrinations, and so forth. So you must control that. Rule number 2. Never go outside the expertise of your people. This will result in confusion, fear, and retreat. Feeling secure adds to the backbone of anyone. Organizations under attack wonder why radicals don't address real issues. Avoid things with which they have no knowledge. This is why, my friends, if you ever try to talk to somebody on the left, these real radicals, these nihilists, these agitators, they cannot talk to you and have conversation and debate. All they will do is yell and scream and make noise and become physically aggressive. I've tried. I have tried to have dialogue with people on the left. They have nothing to say except that I'm a white male. That's it. These people are not only paid to protest, my friends, their movement is not organic. Their movement is purely economic, because some of them, through MoveOn.org and other George Soros operations, are getting paid up to $100 for basically 3 to 4 hours of screaming and yelling and protesting. And they know they're protected from the lawman in any big urban center in the United States, because the urban centers are completely controlled by Democrats. And look at the economic and environmental conditions of our cities. They're failures. Or are they? They're doing exactly what they were meant to do. Rule number 3, whenever possible, go outside the expertise of the enemy. Look for ways to increase insecurity, anxiety, and uncertainty. Think of that. They look for ways to increase our insecurity, our anxiety, and our uncertainty. Agitators, nihilists. You get it? Number 4, make the enemy live up to its own book of rules. If the rule is that every letter gets a reply, then send 30,000 letters. You can kill them with this, because no one can possibly obey all of their own rules. Continue to chip away with damage. Again, nihilists and agitators. Number 5, ridicule is man's most potent weapon. There is no defense. It's irrational. It's infuriating. It also works as a key pressure point to force the enemy, that's you and I, into concessions. You see, we have given concessions and concessions and concessions and concessions and concessions and concessions that now our system of government, our system of a laissez-faire economy, our common law system are gone. Gone. The true word from the pulpits is gone because of the Johnson Act. The churches are more interested in keeping their tax-free status than learning the Word of God. You want to get something interesting, my friends, you go back and you read some of the preaching that was taking place at the founding era of this country. You will be floored at what you'd read. But through the Johnson Act and through social indoctrination, we should never talk about what? Religion and politics, right? Oh, never talk about religion and politics. Keep it out of the pulpit. Government doesn't belong in the pulpit. Well, government is on the pulpit through a tax-free foundation. Number 6. A good tactic is one your people enjoy. They'll keep doing it without urging, and come back to do more. They're doing their thing and will even suggest better ones. That's true. That's just the makeup of man. If we enjoy doing something, we will put more into it and we will do it longer. Number 7. A tactic that drags on too long becomes a drag. Don't become old news. Keep them excited and evolved. Organizers constantly come up with new tactics. Number 8. Keep the pressure on, never let up. Keep trying new things to keep the opposition off balance. As the opposition masters one approach, hit them from the flank with something new. Attack, attack, attack from all sides, never giving the reeling organization a chance to rest, regroup, recover, and re-strategize. Number 9. The threat is usually more terrifying than the thing itself. Imagination and ego can dream up many more consequences than any activist. Perception is reality. Large organizations prepare a worst-case scenario, something that may be furthest from the activist minds. The upshot is that the organization will expend enormous time and energy, creating in its own collective mind the direst of conclusions. Hegelian dialectic. Crisis, reaction, solution. Number 10. If you push a negative hard enough, it will push through and become a positive. Violence from the other side can win the public to your side because the public sympathizes with the underdog. Now, I believe this rule they haven't followed is going to flip on them in 19 days, the midterm election. Because they are the ones that are pushing negative, they are the ones that are rioting, they are the ones that are creating physical assaults, and they have awoken people who before would not be involved with it because the average American was disgusted by what was going on. Number 11. The price of a successful attack is a constructive alternative. Never let the enemy score points because you're caught without a solution to the problem. So, what are we doing? We're going to create the crisis to get that emotional response from the people, and then what? You provide the solution. This is all done before the crisis is created because they start from the solution they want to be able to implement to what emotional response they're going to get from the people, and then they go to what crisis do we have to create to put that into play. Number 12, pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. Cut off the support network and isolate the target from sympathy. Go after people and not institutions. People hurt faster than institutions. Okay, that's what they do, my friends. That's what they do when they go after, say, Supreme Court just nominees. They don't, Brett Kavanaugh, he just got appointed on the Supreme Court, my friends, without one question about any of his previous judgments. Not one question. Think of that. So what does all these rules do? What are they after? They're after something that this man and another man wrote. This is Karl Marx. Karl Marx was a student of Mr. Hegel in Germany and in England. And him and a gentleman by the name of Engels, Frederick Engels, wrote a thing called the Communist Manifesto. And I want to go over the 10 planks here. And as I'm going over these planks, I made some notes to myself. Have these planks been fulfilled? Number 1, abolition of private property and the application of all rents of land to public purposes. Done deal. Senate document 43. Okay? Then you can say Bureau of Land Management, zoning laws, blah, 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 blah. You don't own it, folks. The Bank of International Settlements owns it. Understand that. That's why your mortgage death pledge is on public record at your city or town hall. You would think that would be personal information. Why is it that I have to have that recorded and for public information? Because you don't own it. The insolvent corporation, fill in the blank, city, town of, owns it. They don't own it. They have right to it because they are a liaison to all the insolvent corporations that start at the local level and get to the federal level, that gets to the Federal Reserve Bank, private for-profit foreign banking corporation, that is owned 82% by Europeans, not Americans. Done deal. Right? Done deal. Number 1 is done. Let's try number 2. A heavy, progressive, and graduated income tax. Can you say the 16th Amendment, 1913? Can you say the Social Security Act of the 1936? How about House Joint Resolution 192 of 1993 that we read to you verbatim? So yes, number 2 is done. A heavy, progressive, and graduated income tax is in effect. Abolition of all rights of inheritance. You know this as estate taxes and probate laws. Done deal. Number 4, confiscation of the property of all immigrants and rebels. You know this as tax liens. And this is all in Public Law 99-570. And then you got Executive Order 11490 through Sections 1205. And then you got through 2002, which gives private land to the Department of Urban Development. And then the imprisonment of terrorists are those who speak out or write against the government. That's the 1997 Crime and Terrorist Bill. And then you have the Internal Revenue Service, confiscation of property without any due process. And then you have the asset forfeiture laws used by the DEA, the ATF, the IRS, etc., 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 etc. So number 4, done deal. Number 5, centralization of credit in the hands of the state by means of a national bank with state capital and an exclusive monopoly. Can you say Federal Reserve Act of 1913? Done deal. And let us not forget also that all the local banks are members of this Fed system, and they are regulated through the FDIC Corporation, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which is yet another privately owned corporation. And the Federal Reserve Banks, what? They issue irredeemable paper money because they have confiscated or usurped all the wealth of our nation. Number 5 is done. Let us continue. Number 6, Centralization of the means of communication and transportation in the hands of the state. Can you say, my friends, the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC? Can you say Department of Transportation, which mandated through the ICC Act of 1887, then the Commissions Act of 1934, the Interstate Commerce Commission established in 1938, the Federal Aviation Administration, Federal Communications Commission, and the Executive Orders 11490, 10999, and as well, let us not forget your mandated licenses and DOT regulations. So, is number 6 fulfilled? Completely. Let us continue. Number 7, extension of factors and instruments of production owned by the state, bringing them into cultivation of wastelands and the improvement of the soil generally in accordance with a common plan. Is that done? What about all these trade agreements, my friends? Although Mr. Trump, and I applaud him tremendously, has got us out of NAFTA and has got us out of the TPP. We got about 4 more to go, Mr. Trump. Keep up the good work. I'm very excited about it. Okay, so number 7 is done. Number 8, equal liability to all labor. Establishment of industrial armies. Okay, have they done that? What about all these things like most favored nation status? What about the Social Security Administration? What about the Department of Labor? What about the Civil Rights Acts? What about the unions through affirmative action? What about the Federal Public Works Acts program? And of course, we have Executive Order 11000. So that's done. Done deal. Number 9. Combination of agriculture with manufacturing industries, gradual abolition of the distinction between town and country by a more equitable distribution of the population throughout the country. Now this one I was like, maybe they haven't quite got there yet. Then I did some research. Can you call the Planning Reorganization Act of 1949, which brought in blanket zoning, Title 17, 1910-1990. And then you've got the super corporate farms through all the tax reliefs that people like Monsanto and all the big conglomerates get through the Freedom to Farm Act, which just about destroyed the family farm and gave all the benefits to the corporate farmers. What about Executive Orders 11647, 11731, which puts the 10 regions? This is how the federal government gets involved, because don't forget, the federal government is supposed to be only involved in territories, enclaves, and districts. What they do, they made up the 10 districts, like there is a district of Vermont. There's a state of Vermont and a district of Vermont. Look it up. And what about Public Law 89-136? All done. What about this one? Free education for all children in public schools. Abolition of children's factory labor in its present form. Combination of education with industrial production. Now, free education? I don't think so. We pay an incredibly high cost of education in this country, don't we? My friends, I'm going to stop there. I could go on about the education. I actually got a whole nother sheet here of, outcome-based education, No Child Left Behind, UNESCO implementation of our control of our education. Who is UNESCO? United Nations Education, Scientific, Cultural Organization. That's who controls our education and criteria in this country. What about just the feds coming up with the Department of Education? Ronald Reagan, he promised he was going to get rid of the Department of Education during his campaign. What did he do? He expanded it. Okay? And I have a whole list of how they control education here. And the state of Vermont did a wonderful thing for the people living in not rural areas. You realize in the state of Vermont, my friends, we have a view tax. A view tax. No one can describe to me, not the Secretary of State's office, nobody, what is the criteria of the view tax, but we have a view tax in Vermont. When I moved to Vermont in 1985, my taxes were $200 a year. Now, my taxes are well over $4,000 a year. And no services. I have one plowed road. One. That's the only service I get. No trash pickup, nothing. Zero. Over $4,000 a year. My friends, this, as I read the 10 planks to you, they have successfully implemented them. I read to you Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. I read to you the Cleveland-powered, strategy to make government a weaponized entity against its own people. All of this has been implemented through this playbook. And all of this was implemented and broke down and expanded upon with that Operators Research Technical Manual that we just did 12 shows on recently. And I highly suggest you go back and review those shows. You will see word for word and in absolute detail the hows, the wheres, the whys, all of it, how it's being implemented. And we see that this system that is against President Trump and the nationalist movement in this country, and it's not just this country, my friends. It's in Europe. It's in South America. It's even in Africa. Nationalism is growing in leaps and bounds. Merkel's party just lost on the recent election on every single platform that was voted on. Every single one. Not one victory for Merkel's party. Not one. So we see that all the academia, the media, the churches have all been weaponized, placed under control of these radicals, these nihilists, these agitators, to maintain the system that has been put in place through the use of the medium of exchange and the control of that issuance of medium exchange. And of course, I speak of the international bankers. I loved when I heard President Trump talk about the Federal Reserve 2 days ago. And he actually came out and told the American people that the Federal Reserve is a private institution. That was his words, my friends. President Trump is trying to educate the American people because the average American has no idea that the Federal Reserve is a foreign, for-profit banking corporation with private stockholders. President Trump is trying to educate the American people. It is my hope to provide remedy to this control mechanism and burdensome debt that has been placed upon the American people through a facade lack of money system. Once they control the issuance of the currency, my friends, it only took them 20 years to destroy the most prolific laissez-faire economy in the history of mankind. My friends, get out and vote this coming election. Get out and vote. Get out and vote. My friends, we're very thankful you take the time from your busy day to view our program. We always close in asking you to seek truth, to obtain knowledge, and manifest kindness to your fellow man. And we always close in reminding you that your government is your responsibility. We thank you for watching.
Got to read between the lines. Got to read between the lines. Well, the truth is very simple, very hard to find.